What is a digital nomad and what are the benefits of being one? So, digital nomad is basically a person that doesn't live permanently in a specific place like most people do. It's a person that is moving around the world with a certain frequency. So, is a nomad. So, it's a person that just doesn't have a fixed address anywhere in the world. On top of that, it's also a person that works online. It's a person that leverages all the technology that is available to us nowadays to work from anywhere in the world, and that's why this person can live traveling and not only live in one particular place. So digital nomad is not just a person that works online. It's a person that works online and also moves around the world. So to give you an example, my wife and I, we have been nomads, digital nomads for the last 14 years. So until 2010, we used to live in Rio, in Brazil, but since then, we don't really have a fixed address anywhere in the world. We have been moving around and we have been to 74 countries during this time. Most of the time, how does it work? I mean, if you don't have a fixed address, if you don't have a fixed home, where exactly do you live as a digital nomad? In our case, most of the time we rent apartments around the world, apartments that are for short term, most of the time using Airbnb, for instance, and everywhere we go as a tourist and we only stay for the amount of time that it's allowed for us as a tourist to stay in that place, which in our case as Brazilians, most of the time it means at most 3 months in most of the countries. So most of the time when we go to another city, to another country, we stay there up to 3 months, then we move on to another place. So this is what a digital nomad is. It's kind of a strange thing since most people actually have a real home where they live for many years or sometimes their entire life. So why would somebody do something like this? What's the benefit of moving around the world instead of just having a fixed address? So the first benefit of this, there are several, but the first one is basically the opportunity to actually see the world, to visit many places and get to know the world way more than most people have a chance to do when they have like a regular life where they have a regular address, a fixed address, a regular job where they go to the job every day, and sometimes they have vacations and then they, let's say they travel abroad for their vacations, but they have a short time. And because they only have this short time every year to go somewhere else, they can't really see a lot around the world. Of course, digital nomads have a chance to go to many more places and to get to know those places. And this is naturally quite interesting for people that like to do this kind of thing, for people that like to travel, for instance. Well, another benefit is that when we go to a new place around the world, we have a chance to actually stay in this place longer. And what do I mean by that? Let's say that you decide to do a backpack around Europe during your vacations. Let's say you have 2 weeks for vacations and you decide to go to some place like Paris and London and Rome and I don't know, like Athens and whatever. But since you only have 14 days, you will have to travel quite fast and you will have to spend a very short amount of time in each of those cities. Maybe you're going to stay, let's say, 2 days here, 3 days there. So you have to move very fast. It's something that is quite tiring and you don't have a chance to actually experience how life is in that city. You might be able to take some pictures and to go to some very well-known touristic place, but you don't really live in that city and have the experience of spending time there. In our case, because we don't really have a moment when we have to come back home, we don't really have a back home. So what happens is that we know that we can just spend more time in those places. So most of the time when we go to a city, we tend to stay in that city at least 2 months. Quite often it's around 2 months and a half. And a little bit before our tourist visa expires in that country, a little bit before 3 months, we just move on. So living 2 months in one specific city in a new country is totally different than just staying there for 2 days, because now you have a chance to actually experience experience how it is day-to-day life in that place. It's not the same as a person that is a citizen of that country. It's not the same as a resident, but it's way more than what we get as a typical tourist that just goes to that city for 1 or 2 days. So that's another plus of this life. But there is quite a lot more in this story. So one of the problems that we find in a typical lifestyle where we have our home and our job is that sometimes things become a little bit monotonous. Like we kind of get bored of doing the same things, meeting with the same people all the time, and going to the same places in the weekends and stuff like that. So we would like to bring to our life some kind of variety. So in this nomadic lifestyle, of course, we have variety because during a year, we are changing places, we are changing countries, we are changing language where we are changing we are going to places that have total different culture. Everything is different, and we are doing this several times during the year. It's not that fast as a backpacking. It's like most of the years we would go to like 5 or 6 different places, but each of those places come with lots of new things for us. So when we get to the place, we need to find an apartment. We need to understand how the layout of the city is to decide where to actually live. We have to find where will be our supermarket, our gym, where we will go when we want to go to a nice restaurant, a cafe, or wherever. And we begin to have a routine in this new place. We build a new routine in this place, and now we get to see how people treat us in this place, how we manage to communicate with them, given that most of the time we don't understand the language. Very often we don't even understand the alphabet, so we have to create ways to go around our limitations in this place. It's like a new adventure. So every 2-3 months we embark in this new adventure. And with this new adventure comes a lot of variety, comes a lot of excitement about, oh, what's going to happen and all of that. But there is something else that also comes, which is very, very useful in a very practical manner. You see, one of the problems that we have as we go through life is that we often have to deal with new things, especially considering that in the world where we live, things are changing quite fast, specifically and especially because of new technologies. So all the time we are being demanded. So almost every day, or at the very least every year, we are confronted with new things that we simply didn't exist until yesterday, and we have to learn about them. We have to incorporate them somehow in our lives. So for instance, until just 1 or 2 years ago, nobody was talking really about AI. And now AI is in everybody's minds because everybody is somehow using it. Everybody knows about it because people just keep talking about this. And of course, this is changing many things in our society. It's changing many things in the way we work. It's changing many things in the way we get things done on a daily basis. So this is just an example of new things that come our way all the time. And what makes life quite challenging is that we have to learn how to adapt to those new things really fast, and we have to be able to keep up with this, and it's not easy. But in this nomadic life, we are all the time also confronted with new situations because we go to new countries. And those new situations, they have very, very important consequences. Like, we don't get to make many mistakes until some kind of a catastrophe would happen to our lives. So for instance, we need to, everywhere we go to a new place, we need to find a good apartment. If we don't do this right, we will have a miserable experience for the next 2-3 months. If we don't do this right, we will not be able to do our work properly from this apartment. So we have to get this right. The consequences of not getting this right are quite serious for us. So we had to learn over time to do this several times a year and to do this fast. and quite precisely, otherwise we'll suffer some very serious consequences. So this is just one example of the kinds of challenges that this lifestyle brings, and those challenges are connected to the fact that we are facing change, very important change from time to time, which is exactly what also happens in our lives, except that in our particular life as a nomads, this is, let's say, a bit more extreme, let's put it that way. But the good part of this is that this trains us. It makes us better, more skilled at dealing with new situations. And this is actually great news, and it's quite useful and quite good for ourselves, because in our lives we will often have new situations and we have to be flexible and adaptable. Being adaptable is one of the most important things one person can be to have a good life, given that things are changing quite fast all day long. But if this is good in our personal life, just imagine how good this is for our professional life. Imagine this. Imagine a company that wants to hire a new professional for a position the company has. Who do you think the company will prefer? A professional that is very, very adaptable, very good at learning new things and implementing new solutions, or a person that has a very hard time to keep up with change? Of course, the company will prefer the one that is more adaptable, the one that can learn fast, the one that can use this learning and implement new solutions fast. Because the company knows that during the time this person will be working in the company, this person will face many situations where they will have to learn new things. It's all good and beautiful, the baggage that this person brings from their previous experiences, his education and all of that. But in the end of the day, even the most well-prepared person will have to learn lots of new things in this new job. So you need a person, the company wants a person that is very good at adapting to new situations, learning and creating solutions. And the nomadic life trains you to do exactly that, because the nomadic life demands from you the ability to deal with new countries, new cultures, new languages, new food, new everything from time to time, several times during the period of 1 year. So there are many other benefits of a nomadic life, but I would say that this one is one of the most important. It's just the fact that we get a fantastic training on how to deal with change. And one of the things that happened in our particular case in the last 14 years that illustrated this quite well was exactly the COVID pandemic. When it hit, of course, we were confronted with this new challenge. What do we do about that? How do we react to that? And in our case, it was particularly critical because we realized that we wouldn't be able to travel anymore, at least for a while. And so it could be something very overwhelming for us. But to our very surprise, the way we dealt with this was, in the end, looking now in hindsight, it was much better than what we expected. In fact, we adjusted our life to this new situation with a speed that even ourselves we couldn't believe. Maybe another time I can do a video about that, but it was surprising even for us how this new situation, which was for sure the biggest crisis that we lived in our generation, but how this massive crisis didn't affect us as much as we would imagine. It didn't affect us as much as it affected most of the other people. So I believe that has a lot to do with what I just described. We were at that point so trained at dealing with new situations that when COVID hit, it didn't really cause us that much of a problem, to be honest. So those are some of the benefits of this nomadic life. Perhaps in another video I can talk about some others, but that's what it is. So a nomadic person basically is a person that's moving around the world, traveling from wherever they are, and learning a lot in the process, and especially training a lot how to be more flexible, more adaptable, and more able to deal with new situations.